Joining us this morning. This is to everyone who's on screen with us, as well as our entire CDAC Action Committee, who have done a tremendous amount of heavy lifting to get us here to where we're ready to actually start designing and building Hillman Garage and the CDAC. I also want to welcome all of our elected officials that are joining with us this morning. We have, of course, the mayor is here, Mayor Buckley, the city manager, David Gerald, Alderwoman Tierney. We also have Alderwoman Pindell Charles. And then very, very excitingly from our delegation, we have Senator Sarah Elfreth, we have Delegate Shanika Henson, and we have Delegate Dana Jones. And with that said, I'm going to turn this over to Robert Clark, President and CEO of the Historic Annapolis Foundation. There's a tremendous amount of work that's taken place to get us here. And there is now, we are going into phase 2 of actually designing, building Hillman Dock and the City Garage. Yay, yay, yay. Robert, take it.
Thank you, Eileen. Good morning, CDAC Action Committee. Historic Annapolis is pleased to be here, and we're grateful for all of our partners who helped get us here. 2.5 years ago, we started with a problem, and now we have a solution. Congratulations to our mayor and his administration, who refused to let this plan sit on the shelf like so many of his predecessors. We're also grateful for David Gerald's leadership, who led the selection process and brought us in the right experts to get us here today. We're getting ready to embark upon a journey, and we can see that at the end of the rainbow is a pot of gold. Our filled pot is a resilient city dock, an economically viable city dock, a reinvigorated city dock that respects our historic context and historic sense of place. HA is proud to have been a leading force behind this effort, and we're exceptionally proud that we connected with the Urban Land Institute that coordinated the technical assistance panel 2 years ago. That intense 2-day experience was the driving force behind this entire effort. We're exceptionally proud that our colleagues at ULI considered our program a national model for how a historic community and a local government can work together. We're also proud of our growing partnerships on the federal level, most notably the National Park Service Chesapeake office and the United States Naval Academy. A final thank you goes to all of you who contributed your time towards this effort. Every contribution is significant. If we did not have the community support, we would not be here. I would finally like to thank and congratulate the straws that stirred the drink, Eileen Fogarty and Karen Brown. What a terrific job, ladies. Now it's my pleasure to turn the microphone over to our mayor, Kevin Buckley. Good morning, sir.
Well, I'm so excited to be here today with everybody, but I want to, I'm just here to say just a big thank you. I know we've got a long road ahead of us. There is a lot to do, but nothing gets done without partnerships and without friendships. I want to speak to my friendship with Robert Clark and how none of us would be here today, I think, without the efforts of Historic Annapolis. But we have so many great partners. From our state senators and our state delegates who have helped us move this forward, to the U.S. Naval Academy, who are coordinating with us in our resiliency efforts, and to all the people that volunteered on the committees and gave their time because they love this city. We already live in a beautiful place. We are so lucky to call Annapolis home. But this world-class park, this world-class public space that we're going to create that is going to be there for everyone, this garage of the future that we know we'll be able to convert to housing or offices in the future when we're all driving around in Ubers looking at each other. This is an amazing thing, and this is a forward-thinking thing for one of the most historic cities in America. But again, I'm just here to say thank you to you, the people, the experts that educated me, that helped us come up with a better product here, that help us get to this point, this starting line. I wouldn't be sitting here without you. So I just want to say a big thank you. I'm so looking forward to working with you as we get this to the end, and looking forward to cutting a ribbon with everybody when this is finished, and just saying thank you. And with that, I'll hand over to Dick Franyo to give some words of encouragement and thank him for his efforts and the business community in Annapolis for their support during this. Thank you all.
Great. Thank you. It's Dick here. Yeah, let me just say a couple things. I'll be very brief. You know, obviously we're very supportive of the city dock plan because I think it's going to help all of us longer term, which will be great. And kudos to the mayor and HAF and forming a partnership to get this done. I was just going to say, obviously, it's a tough time for the food service business, as you know. You know, we did okay in the late spring, summer because it was warm and we were able to have tents outside, and COVID hadn't respiked again. So we were bumping along. We were able to bring our people back. So now we're in a different time. Obviously, we're 25% inside. Well, we were closed, and now, of course, until the 28th, based on the court order, we're 25% inside, and then we can have a tent outside. We actually had taken down our tent, but so it's a tough time for our people. We won't be able to employ everyone, and I'm not going to comment on the politics going back and forth. I know people in our business, some of them are very upset that we're in this county have a different rule than others. But I'm also, based on my involvement with the Anne Arundel Medical Center, I know their numbers are going up every day, and that's scary. So, I can really argue both sides of the case. But I think what we're all watching is the stimulus package, and it's just bouncing around as to what it's going to be. I think we're going to get something over the next week or so, but whether it's going to have a direct payment or whether it's unemployment back to $700 a week, which would certainly help the people that aren't going to work for us. And then whether there'll be relief for the food service and other businesses. They've been coming out with a different test basically every day. They'll say, okay, you just got to show a quarter that was down 25%, and then the other party will come out and say, no, you got to show you're 50% down for the year. So we don't know what we're going to get, but obviously we'd like to get something that will help us through these times. And again, the main thing is it's all about the people that work for us and trying to get them through it. I know that there's some people in the food service business have decided they're going to close until spring, but I think they will be back in the spring, but that's their choice. So, again, I think we're going to get through it. I think it's going to be a difficult time. Fingers crossed we're going to get a stimulus package that helps out our employees and helps us out. So that's kind of it. Anything else I should speak about?
No, Dick, that's terrific. And thanks so much. I know you're doing good work down in the Bahamas as well. Stephen, did you want to add anything before we move to Senator Elfreth?
No, I think Dick summed it up perfectly. Thank you.
Terrific. Senator Elfreth.
Well, thank you so much, Eileen, and thank you to everybody on this call. And to Dick, we hear you, we understand. The General Assembly will be reconvening on January 13th to help fill in the gaps that, frankly, to your point, Congress is not filling. So we look forward to continuing to represent this community. I'm joined by my colleagues, Delegate Shanika Henson and Delegate Dana Jones, and we're going to continue to do that. On this project, I am so thrilled. It's many, many years in the making and truly represents a collaboration starting from the community, the city, the county, the state, the federal government, to solve a problem that we've known about for decades and will continue to be a challenge for generations unless we solve it now. And that's what the CDAC plan and the Resilience Authority are here to do. Together, coming from the community in the mayor's office and the county executive's office, together we were able to pass a Resilience Authority bill in the General Assembly last session in a bipartisan manner, overwhelmingly bipartisan manner, in a shortened session to get this funding mechanism through. And I'm so thrilled to see it come to fruition. We often work very hard and pass bills and kind of hold our breath waiting to see if they actually solve the problem that we're seeking to solve. And today is such a wonderful day because we're seeing the fruits of the labor come full circle. Now, I'm so excited to the mayor's point for this to be opened and for us to be able to cut this ribbon. But I would also like to note that just yesterday I was on the phone with my colleagues from Washington State who were considering a similar piece of legislation. And so I can tell you that Maryland is on the forefront of resilience policy. And this is going to be the poster child for that type of policy for other states and for other communities to stand up and say, we are going to save our historic structures. We're going to save our homes. We're going to save our small businesses. And this is the mechanism and the tool by which we can do that. So I'm just happy to be a partner in this and so happy to see it come to fruition. Thank you, Eileen.
Eileen, you're on mute.
Thank you so much, Senator Elfreth, and thank you for your incredible heavy lifting with that legislation. I'd like to acknowledge Delegate Jones, then Delegate Henson, if you all would like to add anything.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here with all of you today. City Doc Action Committee, thank you for all of your hard work. Thank you for respecting our historical, beautiful city, respecting the waterfront. Again, as the senator said, Annapolis will be the leader for so many with this plan throughout the country. I'm thrilled to hear about the Hillman Garage and City Doc design and from the development team. And I'm looking forward to working with everyone as we enter this new phase of our waterfront for everyone to enjoy. So thank you so very much for all of your hard work.
Thank you. Delegate Henson.
Thank you, Eileen. No, I think everything's been said on the state end. We are super excited to be able to help the city have the enabling authority to get the financing done for this project. I had the great pleasure of campaigning in the city election with Gavin when we were all hearing from residents across the city, not just in our City Doc area, but across the city. Everybody is proud of our downtown Annapolis, and everybody wants it to be a welcoming and inviting space that can grow with the city. So to see the hard work of the City Doc Action Committee result in something that looks like a welcoming community square where everybody can find themselves there, having a good time and enjoying the best of what the city of Annapolis has to offer is something that we're all super excited about. So to have followed this project from the council level to the state level and casting a vote in support of this legislation that will enable the financing for it, I too am super excited to hear what the committee has come up with and to see how we will bring this to fruition in the city of Annapolis.
Terrific. And now a person who has been with us from the beginning doing a lot of heavy lifting, Ellie. And Ellie, you will be followed by the city manager.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Eileen. Well, I'm privileged to say a few words this morning at this amazing milestone. I'm sure there will be many accolades and cheers on this announcement, and I'll look to others for that. I'll default to my first love, engineering and construction. Don't tell my husband. So my response is, this is an investment in our future. And I also applaud the city for knowing the importance of pre-construction. In this case, using Pareto's rule, 80% of the what ifs, consequences, design, costing, legal review is done in this 20% duration of the project. Simply put, we have hired qualified expert hands, and they are all on deck to ensure a project that is done on time and on quality level and on budget. And lastly, I don't want to forget how we got here. It was a reaction to the threat of losing the scale and massing of our historic seaport. We established that priority, respecting the standards bequeathed to us by the National Park Service. And that's what guides this project. We are using our resources, that is Hillman, to construct an infrastructure to protect us for decades. And we have an architectural team that will glorify that. So let's not digress from that and simply believe in that field of dreams quote, build it and they, the public, will come. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Ellie, thanks you so much. I'd like to turn it over to our city manager now, who has really shepherded this entire process of selecting the firms, David Gerald.
Thank you, Eileen. So we're very excited about this project. As you can imagine, we feel like this is the right project with the right team, and we're thrilled that all of you were able to join us today. So thank you for that. I want to again thank the Action Committee for all the work that they did in setting the stage for this project. And now we're going to ask you to get re-involved with this as we move into the design and the public input and public outreach phases of the project. We really need you to participate and lend your expertise to this project. As you can see on the slide this is roughly a 5-year planned program. So we started back in August of 19 with the acquisition process, and we expect to finish up by June of 24. So we're at the end of the first phase, which is the acquisition phase. We're getting ready to enter into the fun part, which is conceptualizing the project and doing the design and getting public input and really putting a lot of meat on the bones of this project. So that's going to be very exciting. A little bit intimidating. You know, you have to be careful what you hope for, because we've been moving towards this point, and now we actually have to deliver the projects. And I'm sure that AMRP is going to share that concern as well, because the hard work begins. But with everybody's participation and help, we're going to get through this, and it's going to be a wonderful and great project. So next slide, please. So this is the process that we've been through. We started in August of 2019 by issuing a request for qualifications to anybody that was interested in looking at this project and getting involved. In December, we received the statements of qualifications. We got 5 of those, so 5 teams offer those statements of qualifications. We shortlisted that down to 2 and issued requests for proposals to those 2. We received their proposals in March of this year. We had a very well qualified selection committee that looked at those, and we called them in and interviewed both of the teams and made the selection in July. So since July, we've been negotiating this pre-development agreement. We brought in CBRE, which is the world's largest real estate development firm. It's Coldwell Banker and Richard Ellis is what the CBRE stand for. They helped us a lot through this process of getting this pre-development agreement right. And so we're in the process of signing that this week. So it's off to the races now once we get that signed. So next slide, please. So this is generally what's going to be covered. So the scope of these projects is for Hillman Garage. It's design, permit, build, finance, operate, and maintain Hillman Garage, and be responsible for Hillman Garage for the next 30 years. So we're basically turning over the operations of Hillman Garage along with all the capital costs over to AMRP, and then they pay us for the ability to get those revenues. We're going to use a part of that revenue for the CDAC project. The CDAC, using the same team, will be design, build, permit, and finance a portion of CDAC. So as this slide says, the team, AMRP, is going to pay for all of the costs associated with the PDA, unless we use one of the off-ramps and terminate the project, which we certainly do not expect that we will need to do. We have a superb team, so we don't anticipate that'll be required. We really emphasized in the pre-development agreement that there'll be a very highly collaborative effort with all the stakeholders, including the Action Committee. And as I mentioned, we have off-ramps, but we don't anticipate ever needing to use those. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce two principals from AMRP. Rodney Moss is with us, as well as Ivan Doolin. So I'm going to turn it over to them so they can show you all the very interesting things that we're planning to do at CDAC and Hillman Garage. So Ivan and Rodney, over to you.
Thanks, David. As David's timeline showed, this journey started for us about 1.5 years ago, and the world has changed since then. But we applaud and are delighted and honored to be a part of this project. It's an important project for the country. Resiliency is becoming a very large focus across the country, and we just applaud the city of Annapolis and the Historic Authority and everybody that has and the state for creating this resiliency authority, because the whole world is watching this project and seeing how we do this, and as the senator said before, we think it's going to be a model for delivering some of this infrastructure going forward. We knew that when we started this, it was going to take a combination of international capability and local knowledge. And we set about to create what we believed was a world-class team, the best of breed for everything that had to be done here. Hunt Amber is Hunt owns Amber. Amber is a UK-based infrastructure developer that has projects all over the world, but Hunt is a very much local company. We have offices in Baltimore and Washington, D.C. We have developed social infrastructure across the U.S. for federal and local government for the last 20 years. We just reached close on a similar project, very similar in size and scope, in Biddeford, Maine, several months ago, and we partnered with Treadwell Franklin, which is another local infrastructure developer. They're going to be a part of our team, just bringing all the lessons learned from that project to this one. We've also brought in Whiting Turner, who is a U.S. ENR top 50 contractor, but with very, very deep roots in Baltimore and in Maryland and Annapolis as well, that are going to bring all of their capabilities to bear. We have BCT as the master planner, Bryce Turner, who you'll hear from a little later on some of the design features that we're contemplating here. Very involved with the action committee and with the community of Annapolis. Walker Consultants is one of the leading parking garage designers in the country and brings a lot of innovation to how to create an adaptive reuse design so that it allows the greatest flexibility possible for the future of what this garage may need to evolve into. WSP is, frankly, a leader globally for this type of infrastructure, resilience planning, flooding, and so on. They also are deeply embedded in the community, have one of their largest offices in Baltimore. Han Reichel is our landscape architect, also a local figure who has been involved in this project virtually from its conception. Our parking operator, Premium Parking, we have teamed with them because of the innovation they bring and the systems that they bring and the capability and ability to provide not only just good technology solutions, but good systems thinking around how to operate parking systems and create the maximum revenue for the city. And then we have our mobility solutions provider, who will be providing the swing mobility solution for when the garage is under construction, so that there's as minimal disruption as possible. We're very proud of this team. We've really jumped in and rolled up our sleeves, and we look forward to getting to work. Ivan.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Rodney. And to echo what Rodney said, we're very, very pleased to be here. And this is going to be a Pathfinder project, not only for the state of Maryland, but the nation as a whole. So we're very excited to be a part of it. One of the key elements of the project is the resiliency aspect and how to mitigate some of the issues around flooding and storm surges and water. But resiliency is more than that, and that's what was important for us to integrate into the design and our approach to the project. What you see in front, and Bryce will go into some of the some more detail later, but is our kind of vision of what this area can be and provide resiliency not only as a barrier against water and storm surge, but also resiliency for the community and be a spot where the community can gather. So if we can jump to the next slide. So one, and to achieve that, one of the things that we wanted to do was to activate the space and make it more welcoming, both for the local community and visitors. We have also put in, as you can see from the overview here, much more green space and tree canopy to also alleviate some of the heat island effect. As everybody in the area knows, the combination of sun and humidity, a little bit of shade goes a long way midsummer. So we think that will be kind of a welcome addition. We see the city dock area functioning in the future also as kind of a swing space for kind of public activities and throughout the year, not only kind of during the fabled summer season. Another aspect that was important was to take the parking spots that are being reduced at City Dock, have been reallocated to the new Hillman Garage, and that's one of the benefits of the garage that we're going to get into a little bit later. So and by doing so, you get the benefit of kind of a more active and usable space, but without losing kind of the mobility and parking aspect. So kind of a best of both worlds is what we hope to achieve. If we can jump to the next slide. The access to water is important, both from kind of a city identity perspective, as well as kind of the feel of the area. So when we were looking at how to go about implementing resiliency solutions, we wanted to keep as much access as possible while still providing the protection that was required. So the way we ended up, or a solution that we ended up landing on, was taking a bit of a tiered approach. And by that, you'll see in the graphic below that we have built up for a 6-foot sea level rise to protect against kind of tidal flooding and minor storms as something that's there, built in and active all the time. But then we're kind of well aware with some of the storm patterns that we've seen and additional sea level rise that an additional protection would be required. And the way we've gone about solving for that is to put in flip up barriers, or barriers that will be there when you need them for those large storm surges, but that on the 99% of the time that they're not needed, kind of are out of the way and don't hinder access to the public space. And you'll see that as we go through the process moving forward and get into the more detail, we have always tried to kind of balance the need for protection against access to the water. So with that, Rodney, I'll hand it back to you.
Next slide. So garages are, you know, not exactly complex structures, but they are, they can be challenging as you think about how to activate the street. They can be challenging as you think about how to, you know, communicate parking availability so that you're maximizing the revenue that that the garage can generate. They can be a challenge when you think about, you know, how to enter and exit and how to integrate this garage into the overall system of parking that the city of Annapolis has. And so, you know, we have a lot of thinking to do about how to make sure we hit all of the marks on those things. We want to make sure that we don't create a dead zone, a parking island that is, you know, we want to activate it as much as possible. We also want to make sure that we design the garage for as much adaptive reuse as we can, as the, you know, the need for parking in the future can be uncertain. So we have a lot of objectives ahead of us. We think we have great solutions for all of them, and we look forward to engaging with the community and, you know, the historical commission and everybody to make sure that we hit the mark on this. Ivan.
Great. Can jump to the next slide. So I think a theme you'll hear from us is kind of a holistic approach, which kind of started with the great work that the CDAC Action Committee did. We've tried to utilize that kind of in all aspects of the project. One of them is how we're looking at kind of parking and mobility. So we, as Rodney mentioned up top, we have VIA as a mobility solutions provider, and we teamed with them for two reasons. One is we see the ability to integrate kind of a on-demand mobility and transportation solution as a way to mitigate some of the concern around the loss of Hillman, temporary loss of Hillman during construction. And by providing a mobility service that allows the other garage facilities that the city has to be utilized during that period and provide kind of easy access for the community and visitors from those facilities to the downtown area and city dock area is going to be important. We also see mobility and parking as something that needs to be looked at holistically going forward as well. So one of the things that we're really excited about to work with the city on is to see how kind of on-demand or smaller mobility solutions can aid mobility and transportation in the city, both during construction but also over time. So that will be important, an important part of the project and development as we move forward, and look forward to providing more updates on that in the future. If we can go to the next slide. So just to give a quick overview of kind of how we're looking at the project or projects from kind of a financing and how the project will be structured, and diving into a little bit of the detail. As has been mentioned already, and one way this project truly is a Pathfinder project is how a city or a municipality can utilize the asset that is a parking garage and the revenue to allow for payment of other, or to pay for other required infrastructure. So for this project, what we're doing is taking the future parking revenues from the new Hillman Garage and utilizing those revenues to fund both the construction cost for Hillman, in addition to the construction cost for the city dock. And by doing it through this type of PDA and P3 structure, we are able to provide a solution where this can be delivered without it being a burden to the city's budget or balance sheet. And we're really excited about kind of working through the details here, because as I mentioned, this will a lot of other cities and municipalities around the US will look to this project as an example of how this can be done in the future. Just talk briefly on kind of a little bit who's doing what, because there are a lot of moving pieces in a complex project like this. So for Hillman Garage, AMRP will be responsible for both designing and building the garage, in addition to then operating and maintaining it over the 30-year period. And then for the city dock, we will be responsible for designing and building the city dock improvements, while the city maintains kind of operation and maintenance of that infrastructure. We see kind of the interests aligning very much between the city and AMRP here as we go forward. We're heavily invested now to make this a success for all parties, both during the development phase, but also through the term of the contract. If we can jump to the next slide. I know this is probably a very important slide for everybody naturally, and that is timing. What schedule are we looking at? So we are. This will naturally be further refined as we go forward, but we wanted to mention kind of what we've been trying to take into account in developing the schedule. So we have. The plan is to be ready to start construction in January 2022, thereby kind of avoiding kind of any construction impact around the holiday season in 2021. We then are looking to have most of the structure completed in kind of the November timeframe. To then again avoid kind of the heavy construction equipment and impact to local businesses as much as possible as we go into the holiday season around 2022. We will start construction on City Dock in the beginning of the year 2023. It's important to note the initial construction on the City Dock will be more on the water side, so bulkhead and barrier construction. Thereby avoiding taking any parking spots from the city dock area until the garage is completed. So that's been kind of an important planning aspect to us. We will then work through the construction of the city dock with a plan to be done in Q1 around March timeframe 2024. And then as we go through this process, we'll be working with the city and getting input from the community of seeing how much we can avoid kind of the construction impacts as we go along, and plan around important events such as the boat show and things like that we know are very important for the city and the community. So with that, Rodney, I'll hand it back to you.
Next slide, please. This delivery method that we are using is what is becoming known as progressive development. And basically what that means is that the city and the developer partner together for a pre-development time before financial close to make sure that all of the concerns, expectations are fully contracted and in the pricing and in the financing, that the project is de-risked as much as possible so that you're not overpaying for your financing and your capital cost. Also to make sure that the other objectives, whether it's the minority and disadvantaged business participation is maximized. And then, most importantly, we've got this new tool in the toolkit with this resiliency authority, and we have potentially lots of grants that are available. We need to spend this time, roughly 9 months, to make sure that we have optimized everything about this project, both from a cost of capital and from a scope perspective, so that the city achieves the lowest possible cost of the project over the 30 years, and that it maximizes the revenues that are available from the garage, both to fund what might be needed for resiliency and then the excess cash flows that would be used for their budget. So the bottom line is we're going to spend about close to $4 million doing all of this work before we go to financial close. And, it's on a very transparent, collaborative, scheduled cost schedule where everybody understands every month what's being spent, and we have deliverables and milestones that create outputs that we will come to all of you with, giving you updates periodically, telling you where we are and what we're achieving. So, but the bottom line is, by next November, we're going to be going to financial close and hopefully have all of our permitting done and be ready to start construction the next day, as soon as the holiday period and the site clears out, so that it creates as little disruption as possible a year from now.
Rodney?
Yes.
I thought you were ending. I apologize.
No, that's fine. I was pretty much done.
Thank you, Rodney, and thank you, Ivan, for that tremendous presentation and a lot of detail. I'm sure there'll be many questions. I'd like to have Wendy now share with us the collaborative effort she's been working on to create access from our city dock to the waterfront. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Eileen. Good morning, everyone. I'm Wendy O'Sullivan. I'm the superintendent for the National Park Service Chesapeake office. I'm joining you from my home in Davidsonville, Maryland, although our offices are based in Annapolis and have been since the start of MPS, really focusing in on the Chesapeake. So thank you to Mayor Buckley for inviting me to share a few remarks this morning on the work underway to create a dynamic and impactful partnership with MPS and the city. Next slide. I'm honored and really thrilled to be part of the Annapolis community and our large and growing network of partners across the Chesapeake. What maybe people aren't aware of is that the Chesapeake is not only a national treasure that's rich and in natural and recreational cultural heritage, but its watershed is 64,000 square miles that runs from upstate New York to Virginia's tidewaters, with 150 rivers and thousands of streams that drain into the bay. The Chesapeake Bay is a vital part of the American experience. It's nationally significant and worthy of conservation, restoration, and stewardship efforts. And so the MPS, since 1998, has moved forward with a program called the Chesapeake Gateways and Water Trails Network. And that effort is 20 years on now, and we're reviving it to bring forward the hundreds of special Chesapeake places, your favorite places, parks, refuges, museums, historic sites, and more, that connect people with the experiences of authentic, natural, cultural, recreational, historical resources of the Chesapeake Bay watershed. And the mission for MPS across the Chesapeake, it is really special and unique across the national park system. It is based on this vision of knitting together through partnerships, a system of these authentic places and sharing them and helping to conserve the Bay by connecting people with these amazing experiences. And we have a special authority within the MPS that includes the ability to partner with and provide technical and financial assistance to federal, state, local nonprofits and the private sector, which has really been something that I've been focused on because of the many exciting opportunities that can bring forward. The MPS Chesapeake is about people, places, and stories. It is a driver for visitation and recreation and economic impact, as well as Bay restoration, conservation, and stewardship. We value education, diversity, inclusion, and equitable access for all. And what I'm excited about all the time is that home base for MPS Chesapeake is fittingly Annapolis, the heart of the Bay. Starting here in Annapolis, the MPS Chesapeake Gateways will be the vehicle through which the National Park Service and its partners collectively present the Chesapeake to the American people. Next slide. And you know, we have started with some of our longstanding Annapolis partners, next slide, by reviving our connections and moving forward on supporting several really great projects here in Annapolis. You see a few here on this slide. We are just honored to have been part of and support the CDAC planning effort and want to thank Historic Annapolis as being our key partner in reviving our work in Annapolis. Thank you, Robert, and your team for your vision and fellowship. And I also want to say how pleased we are to support the Annapolis Maritime Museum's exciting projects, including the Back Creek Nature Park. Thank you, Alice and Dick, for helping to connect all Annapolitans with their waterways and the Bay. Next slide. And, you know, we're moving in a new direction for MPS Chesapeake Gateways. The philosophy has always been to be place-based, to meet people where they are. And we will continue to promote and provide assistance to the individual Chesapeake Gateway sites. And we are moving forward with an exciting new concept for Chesapeake Gateways communities. I'm excited to share that Annapolis will be our first Chesapeake Gateway community. Annapolis is our home, and it has multiple gateway sites and layers of Chesapeake stories, including lesser known stories that we are anxious to bring forward together. Through a new partnership with the City of Annapolis and many Annapolis partners, we are leveraging the new CDAC project and a community scale approach for MPS Chesapeake Gateways to together spark a new era to bring new economic drivers, community benefits, and ways to better engage local communities and the regional and national visiting public. And we are not starting small. Next slide. Our signature partnership project will be and is the Burtis House on City Dock, the last remaining waterman's home on the historic waterfront. I want to thank Senator Elfreth for her leadership and for bringing NPS and all the partners to the table for Burtis. Really, thank you so much. It was the spark we needed to both come together and move forward. Last year, NPS Chesapeake provided funding to Historic Annapolis to conduct a feasibility study on how best to stabilize and adaptively reuse the Burtis House and Wharf. The great news is it is possible. And the even better news is we have the funding for phase 1. This year, through a partnership with the City and Preservation Maryland, combined with funding from NPS Chesapeake, Maryland Legislature, thank you, Senator Elfreth, and the Maryland Heritage Areas, We will be lifting the Burtis House up out of the floodwaters and king tides. An important piece of history of working Chesapeake in Annapolis will be protected. And together we will be planning for its future as a dynamic public space. Next slide. We've also been working with Historic Annapolis and many Annapolis destinations and stakeholders on developing a master interpretive plan, a visitor experience plan for all of the themes and ways to connect with Annapolis. This image just shows one of the themes, the many spots associated with maritime industry and history in Annapolis. And I am glad to be part of the new maritime task force that is working to advance stability within the maritime industry. Next slide. But the big vision is to create the MPS gateway to the bay at the Burtis House, a space that would be welcoming and inclusive and an activated space that connects people to the bay and to our great city. Next slide. But there's more. On the horizon is an exciting proposal to create a new national park for the Chesapeake. Next slide. Oh, no, I'm sorry, stay on the slide that we were just on, sorry about that. The concept under consideration, sorry, let me just make sure. Yeah, go ahead to the next slide. And the next one, great. The concept under consideration by Senator Van Hollen and other congressional leaders is to create a new Chesapeake National Recreation Area based in Annapolis that would elevate the Chesapeake nationally and be a partnership national park where the MPS would establish long-term partnerships with existing state parks, maritime museums, historic ports, and other spaces around the bay. A Chesapeake-focused unit of the MPS will fill a key gap in national recognition and would bring exciting opportunities for Annapolis to be the home of a new national park. Next slide. So it's fair to say there are exciting days ahead for Annapolis and the MPS, and we're excited to begin our partnership with Mayor Buckley and the City of Annapolis. And please know that we are working to ensure we put all the right pieces in place and that we do it with you and for you. I have a very good feeling about where we are headed together and all the truly exciting opportunities just around the bend. Some may be smaller, yet very impactful by helping the individual gateway sites across Annapolis. Some, like the perennial idea of a national park for the Chesapeake, are big and bold. No matter the scale, the future of MPS, Annapolis, and the Chesapeake is 100% about community partnerships. So thank you for providing a little time today, and I just really look forward to our next chapter together.
Wendy, thank you so much. Next slide, please. And for all of you who are chomping at the bit with questions, if you can stay with us, we will all be able to stay as long as you can stay to make sure we get all your questions. As you can hear from Wendy's comments, there is a lot that's very exciting that's going on concurrently with bringing on AMRP. You're all probably aware that the Board of Public Works has recommended transferring the Burtis House and its dock to the city. That is underway now, and as you heard from Wendy, as is what'll be the retrofitting, the raising, and the redevelopment of that building. What all this says to us is all the work that was done on the City Dock Action Committee, where we talked about access to the water, how will we get people to the water, how will we activate the Burtis dock, how will we have an official entrance to the bay. All of that is coming together. And the piece that's very important with all of this is you add the Burtis dock, the Burtis House, to our proud public space at City Dock, and we have an opportunity for the first time for the city to really have a venue to tell its story, the authentic story from residents who live here in Annapolis, who've lived here their whole lives, some who've come fairly recently. And that's the story that we have just started to document those stories in interviews. We're going to share one very quickly with you. There are several others that are being documented that we will bring together in the next month or so, but they're amazing stories. And with that, I'd like to have Brennan, if you could introduce the story.
Certainly, Eileen. Again, thank you everyone for being here. We've had a great opportunity to speak to multiple individuals, and we're still in the process of gathering more of these stories from the dock to express City Dock's diverse history from all perspectives, not just from those who live immediately at the dock, but those who live in and around Annapolis but have always had City Dock as its heart and home. So you can go ahead and play that video.
Yeah, so I'm very excited to be at this point at the City Dock. You know, one of the big things that I talked about when I came into office was how we have the most valuable real estate in the city, and it belongs to the automobile, and it should be a public space for everyone to assemble on, and for us to program, and for us to tell the story of this city. This city is rich in history. It has amazing colonial history, but it has great modern history as well. And that park's identity has to be shaped by the experiences of the people that actually lived in this city. So it can't be a top-down thing, it has to be a bottom-up process. So we're bringing in people again to talk about what their experiences were with City Dock. We know that, you know, there used to be crabbers and oystermen making their living at the waterfront, and that got sort of taken away. So we don't see any of that authenticity in our waterfront anymore. I would like some dedication to that. And even further back, talking about the people that built this city, the slaves that were brought here and actually constructed many of the buildings and the state capitol in this city. That story, the stories of those families generations later. So I feel very lucky to be part of this process. We're actually going to get it done, and we're going to get it done because we've made the community get behind it through this amazing process.
I grew up in Annapolis. In fact, moved here at the age of 4 years old. I was born in Fort Meade, Maryland. Eastport, as well as all around Annapolis, Black children had access to the water. I mean, literally. I could walk from Eastern Avenue, Chester Avenue in Eastport, all the way around to Trumpy's boat yard, which was still in business at that time, one of the last wooden boat manufacturers in the country. I'd have my basket, I'd have my net, I'd have 2 dozen of crabs, go cook my crabs. Now, at the age of 13 years old, my first job ever in 1968, I worked at the yacht club when it was segregated. I washed dishes there, okay? And that gives you an idea of the climate back in those days. I remember you could buy gasoline downtown for your car because there was a gasoline station there. Rookie's Meat Market, okay? And the barbershop that Carl Snowden alluded to earlier, I used to get my hair cut there sometimes, okay? But I remember when the downtown area, City Dock area, was the epicenter of commerce for the city of Annapolis. There were no malls. There were one strip mall in Parole, but you bought your groceries, you bought your clothes, you bought everything downtown. So what you saw was an amalgamation and an eclectic array of people from all over Annapolis downtown. So I think this park needs to bring that population back to downtown and have something for everybody.
My family moved to the States in about 1988, 1987. So about 6 years old. Downtown area was always a meeting point. It was the center of Annapolis to us. whether we had, we're meeting friends or we're getting dropped off to go see somebody or, doing a special dinner or lunch. It's always been downtown Annapolis because it's always had everything that you needed. So I joined the military right after high school, spent some time, then 9/11 happened. The unit I was with, it's actually an infantry airborne unit. So we were out there 2003, 2004, took a little break, wanted to go back in, went back 2007. So I've had a lot of deployments. And each time that I saw the community in Annapolis is that they were always behind my mom. They're very supportive and stuff like that. If they knew somebody's kid was in the military, overseas, like everybody would get together, they would send beads, they would send care packages. So I saw the community really come up. So my shop, I opened up about 2 years ago. So it lasted for a year, then COVID happened. But during that time, I got to see how downtown is important to people.
So there are definitely more stories to be told about City Dock. It was great to hear many things from Archie, our very own Director of Recreation and Parks.
So I'm very excited to be at this.
And that last speaker, Jonas Vasquez, who is a veteran in Annapolis, and he also owned a business in Annapolis before the COVID shutdown. So there are many more stories to be told, and we are gathering those stories, and we hope to share them with you in the future. Thank you so much, Eileen.
Brandon, thanks so much. While Julian is getting back up the last images before we go into our questions, what I'd like to remind everyone of is where we have come from. It was less than a year ago that we were at the City Council last January. The council endorsed in January. In March, we had endorsement from the Planning Commission. But during that time, when we moved on from March, we were faced with COVID, and we had so many people from this City Dock Action Committee that worked with the businesses and you can hopefully see this on the screen now. From March through the summer, they worked with the businesses in downtown and the residents for outreach. So you all have been involved throughout this process. We're now moving into the next phase of working with the AMRP team and Bryce. Next slide, please. We anticipate having meetings approximately every 8 weeks. Do you have the next slide? Thanks. We anticipate meetings every 8 weeks, similar to our prior schedule. And during that time, you all will have an opportunity to look at the planning and design of Hillman, the development of a comprehensive parking and mobility strategy, a design and planning for City Dock, as well as communication to the public and updates on everything through the final completion of the project. I also want to note that there is a very aggressive MBE program being put in place by Whiting Turner. They will be reaching out to minority businesses, disadvantaged businesses, and ensuring that all of our local businesses, and particularly our minority community, will have the opportunity to participate in building this incredible project. So before I turn it to Bryce to give you the pretty pictures and then turn it to all of you, again, I want to thank you, but I want to really ask that you all now, starting in January, to succeed. We need your continued involvement and commitment. Bryce, and then
Great. Thanks, Eileen. Much appreciated. What a milestone event this is. And I want to echo what Eileen said about the Action Committee, and also thank Leo Wilson, who co-chaired the Design Committee portion of that Action Committee, and all the other people who have worked so hard, Michael Dowling and others. We are so fortunate to have a mayor and state legislators who are willing to promote their own political capital and support this development and really instigate it and make it happen. So we're really lucky. But then to have Historic Annapolis as well, and the National Park Service, as you just saw, what an incredible opportunity for Annapolis as a gateway to the Chesapeake. And so CDAC is going to be an appropriate gateway. I'm really excited about that. Also, before I forget it, I want to mention AMRP. So as you heard from Rodney and Ivan, these guys really get it, and they truly understand the impact of this Pathfinder project, as Ivan called it, which is so important to a community, green infrastructure, as well as the opportunity to help businesses with economic development. So, and lastly, I have to thank Brennan Murray, who did a great job with these videos and who's been in the background helping me all along with CDAC for these last 18 months or so. Hillman Garage. So Hillman Garage, this is the existing garage, as you know. It can only get better, right? I mean, on Gorman Street here, it is really an eyesore and it's at the end of its useful life. And so there's a lot that we can do with it. So if we go to the next slide or two, I want to keep these moving quickly. So we have discussed doing some rather innovative things here, and a lot of exploration is going to have to happen. But as Rodney said, how do we activate the street with a parking garage? It's not easy. We're considering things like some pop-up vendors that could happen on the ground floor here on Gorman Street and really start to definitely activate that portion of the street, which I think could be very exciting. There's the opportunity for adaptive reuse of this building in the future, but we will be doing a parking study to right-size this garage. It'll be somewhere between 550 and 725 cars or so. So next slide. And with that, and as was described by Ivan, we get the financing for the resiliency at City Park. But when you look at CDAC today, it's amazing. The best parking in Annapolis is right there at the end of CDAC, which makes no sense, of course. But even the retail there has suffered a little bit, and that's because people will park their cars there, but then walk all the way to the market, because that's really where you get the sense of place that's so important for Annapolis and any community, really. So it really was a no-brainer, and this entire action committee has built upon the shoulders of all the other studies that have been done and all the other talent that discovered the opportunities of putting a park here that could also be a significant part of the resiliency solution. So what we do is we actually build a park in this location. So if you go to the next slide, you start to sense immediately the improvements that can make and how it can leverage economic development within these businesses that line the park and allow people to experience CDAC again in a more positive way, as Archie Trainer was just saying, for people to be able to tip their toe in the water again, which is one of the comments we had heard with the ULI tap that was done. So we're very excited about it. Obviously, this park's going to be raised up to about elevation 8, and as Ivan described, that'll be a part of the resiliency solution here. But it's also about the businesses that ring this. It's about that continuous promenade that we want to extend all the way around CDAC and take it as far as we can on city land. And then it needs to extend on private property beyond that. But you see the opportunity to get some shading here, some greenery to remove some of that heat island effect. And next slide, please. So it's exciting. In the foreground here, you see a kind of a bubbling fountain that is something that the Action Committee had suggested. And the existing Marina Facilities building, the Harbor Master building, is going to be downsized in this location and relocated over next to the Burtis house. And a lot of study remains to figure some of that out. But this structure will help house some of the pumps that are also part of the resiliency solution here at CDAC. So you can see how it gets raised a bit from Dock Street. We've shown brick in Dock Street. We would love to be able to do that. So we have a lot to figure out. There's been a lot of design work that's been done as part of this RFP process, but I'm pleased to say that AMRP encouraged us to work from the kernel of an idea that the City Dock Action Committee had developed. And so all the work that's been done, I think, is very much in the spirit of that original grassroots consensus plan that was developed. Still a lot of engineering and design yet to go, but we're very excited about it. Mahan Reichel is the landscape architect that will be working with us on this to develop a beautiful new living room for Annapolis right on the water's edge. So couldn't be more excited about that. This is a view of that Fountain Plaza again. These are some of the new images that were developed as part of that RFP process. The first time that they've kind of been unveiled here publicly. The idea is that this building that's on the left, while it's not fully designed yet by any means, but is a downsized version of the pump house that's there. There could be an opportunity for a mezzanine level, as you see there, for some public functions. And the programming of that building still needs to be resolved. But this gives you an idea of what can happen with that structure and some of the shading, which we heard loud and clear from the action committee and personal handwritten letters I got some from people telling us about the importance of getting some shading at City Dock. Next slide. And just one more view of that structure as well, which we're calling the pump house. I think we probably need to find some benefactor who wants to sponsor this building and put their name on it. So I won't make any suggestions now, but I think it could be very exciting. Next slide. So I want to thank you very much. We want to keep this moving. I think Ivan and Rodney did a good job of talking about some of the details. Happy to answer any questions that come up. The last thing I'll mention is you see in this slide right next to the historic ship, the Burtis House, which will be raised up, of course, about 5 feet to protect it from flooding. And then next to that, a very simple structure that will be the new Harbor Master facility. I will say that we believe, as did the Action Committee and the design team before, that any new structures that we build at City Dock should have a little more of a contemporary vibe to them. We don't want to confuse them as being historic structures. They want to be very simple, but with some of the similar scale and massing of the historic buildings, obviously, so that they fit in. A lot of work to go on that, and we'll be engaging the historic community with that. So with that, I'd just like to say thank you and very excited about the prospects moving forward. Thanks, Eileen.
Thanks so much, Bryce. I'd like to have, the mayor wants to share a couple comments, and then because we have all of this information has taken a little bit longer than anticipated, we're going to put you all up on the screen, and you can raise your hand. That'll be quicker than chats, and I will call on people to ask your questions. Mr. Mayor.
I just wanted to take 1 minute to say we could not have a better person at the helm than City Manager David Gerald at this time. We need an engineer's perspective from this. He is a problem solver, and we're so lucky. But I would be remiss in not mentioning our former city manager, Teresa Sutherland, who laid the groundwork, created the infrastructure for this thing to move forward, and working closely with Dan Neese and Joanna Throw from the University of Maryland to really conceptualize how we get this done, how we get this paid for. They've been amazing partners, and they really deserve so much credit for where we are today. And also County Executive Stuart Pittman. He has the toughest job in Maryland right now. Leadership is at a crisis point. We're having to make decisions on the fly and charter territory that is uncharted. And he had the vision to realize that if we set the stage in Annapolis, in the state capital of Maryland, that other municipalities will follow suit and will be able to follow the roadmap that we create. So I have to give a lot of credit to County Executive Pittman. And I'm looking forward to him being part of the next conversation we have like this. But I just had to say, bring those guys up and thank them profusely for getting us here today. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I know that Joe Rubino and Steve Samaras had some questions to me yesterday. Are they on the line to kick off the questions? Don't hear them. So let me ask for hands. Do we have any hands for questions or people? Okay. I'm going to have to do it in here because I can't see them. Julian is bringing everybody forward so we can see your hands and get your questions. I know it was a tremendous amount of information today because it's been all of this work of both the Park Service as well as the city, the amazing job David and Brian Schneider have done to bring this whole team forward, and so that we are ready to kick it off in January. A lot of information, but hopefully a lot of good questions. Ellie, I can see you. So since I can see you, do you have a question or comment?
No, I actually, I don't have a question. I think this is, you're right. It is a lot of information to digest all at once. So I'll resort to people that have heard it for the first time, and I'm sure there are questions, but this is a great day.
I think there's
it is.
Alex Pine.
Alex, question?
Hello, yeah, I have a question. It's around Hillman, and I'm just curious, and I'm sure this is, it's a detail that was, too detailed to get into a presentation today, and you can defer the answer to say TBD, but just something I'm really curious about is when will the decisions be made about who retains control over the parking policy of Hillman? For example, over setting pricing, timing, who gets to park there, at what cost, city vehicles, city residents, all those kinds of decisions I'm sure are going to be made, at some point. It has to be part of this agreement. And so I'm just curious about that. And then, sort of a follow-up that's related to that is, what happens if, based on the policy, revenues don't meet expectations? As we all know, people who park here, especially residents, are pretty price sensitive. And, based on the policy that's set, what happens if it doesn't really achieve the revenue we hope, either, because of policy choices or unforeseen events like the COVID pandemic? What happens there? That's ultimately like a worst case scenario. So those are the two things that I'm curious about. And, I imagine they're all details to be worked out later. So if nobody really wants to address them in this forum, that's fine.
Let me ask
the need to be
manager.
to be explained to people.
Alex, happy to tell you what we know now. So for your first question about all those sorts of details on the operations and the pricing and who can use it and who can't, those will all be worked out over the next year before we do the definitive, what we're calling the definitive agreement for the garage. So before construction starts, we'll have all those worked out and all those in an agreement. What's contemplated right now, and it may change, but what's contemplated now is that the rates essentially will stay about the same as they are today. But again, all that needs to be worked out. I can tell you that for your second question, if the financing isn't available, we contemplated that and worked out what would happen with the agreement if that does occur. So either if it can't get financed or else if it can't get permitted for whatever reason, then that's sort of an off ramp, and we've agreed on how the pre-development costs will be will be shared between the two parties if that happens. And maybe Rodney can address a little bit more about his perspective on the financing. Clearly at this time,
more in terms of, you know, what that scenario after construction is complete and you're into mainstream operations. So,
Rodney, you want to take a stab at that? So if the
yeah, we're going to have an investment grade parking study that is going to help us understand what the demand is at what rates that then translate into, you know, what cash flows. And, you know, the lenders and their underwriters are all going to have their methodologies by which they, you know, handicap that and reserves that they create within the finance structure to deal with the upset events. So, you know, we will all be able to see kind of everybody's best guess on what the demand is at what rate for how long, and then we'll structure the deal around it. And the reserves to address those will be dealt with within the financing and then within our sub debt under a worst case scenario. But it's, you know, the rights for the city to step in or the rights for things to adjust will all be baked into the agreement.
Great.
Rodney, thanks.
Just the last thing on that is I think the messaging to the public is going to be really, really critical here as to how, you know, how this works. And because a lot of people don't pay attention to those details and just assume, you know, the city's trying to screw us. And so I think the messaging on that is going to be really critical. Something to keep
and Alex, I mean, if the city makes a decision to take the one-time payment, the city will already transferred the liability pretty much over to the operator for 30 years. Now, you know, over a 30-year period, you can amortize things out. So those decisions will be made early. So we've made sure there's a lot of protections built in, and there's, you know, there's things to work out over this year. The parking study is imperative, but you know, they've done a lot of homework before now to get to this point, and we've thought of all those things as well. Thank you.
All good questions, Alex. I know Nate Bettnam had a question for me yesterday. Nate, do you still have a question? Where's Nate?
Not right now.
Another person that has always had questions for me, Gary Jobson had questions the beginning of the week for me. Debbie Gosling had questions. Carl Larkin had questions. Any of you have some questions you'd like to ask now?
It was a good presentation, so thank you very much. I don't have any further questions, but thanks for thinking of me.
Terrific. Either Debbie or Carl?
Not at this time, Eileen, but thank you.
And other people who have asked me questions this week, Larry Shabmel and John Hammond had some questions. Did you all want to follow up?
Yeah, Eileen, this is John Hammond. Larry and I have agreed that probably the most effective use of everyone's time is to meet offline with Nate and David. So we'll look forward to doing that most likely after the holiday. But I would be remiss seeing his face on this screen to not wish former Mayor Hillman a happy Hanukkah and everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Well, thanks very much. And yes.
And happy birthday, Dick.
And Dick, you are listed as Lisa Hillman. Did you have any comments you wanted to make? I guess not.
Eileen, I just suggested this was an excellent kickoff meeting for a project, and it was well presented, and the presenters should be acknowledged as having done a good job. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Pete Chambliss.
Quick question for Brennan. We know some people that have some stories to tell. How do we
get them involved with you so they can tell their tale before they pass.
Pete, I have a good answer for that. Just contact me. Will Rowell and I are working with Brennan on this. And I know Alderwoman Pindell Charles is getting some people together, and you and Jane should know a lot of people from the community who grew up. So that would be terrific.
We'll even put Janie on there.
Okay.
She's day one with some stories to tell before that.
Before day one. So who have we missed who would like to make a comment?
I think Mark Kleinschmidt had a question about what's
Mark?
in place.
Yes, hi everyone. Great presentation, great project, and I think it is going to be a national model. One of the things I was curious about as things move forward is the establishment of the Resiliency Authority. I know that the legislation was passed in the General Assembly, but is that all in place, or is there anything else that needs to be done so that organization is able to provide the financing?
David, do you want to respond?
Yeah, I'm happy to. But before I respond to that, if I could just say a thank you to Nate Bettman. I can tell you he was part of the selection committee, and without him, we would not be here today. So thank you very much, Nate, for all of your time and effort helping the selection committee with their work. There were so many financial details as part of the proposals that only Nate could understand those and help us through that. So thank you, Nate. For the Resilience Authority, so the legislation was passed last spring. All summer and fall, we had a county and city work group that were working to put that structure together. There were 3 subcommittees. One subcommittee looked at what the organization of the Resilience Authority was going to be. One looked at the types of projects that would be taken on by the Resilience Authority, and the third was where the money was going to come from, obviously the most important. So each of those teams and the overall work group finished their work. A legislative request went into the city attorney's office to draft the legislation that the county will have to pass. As soon as they get that drafted, that will also come over to the city so we can review it and start working with the city council on that. We want the county council to lead because they're really the 800-pound gorilla in all of this. So we need them to pass it first, and then it'll come to the city council. So it's not a done deal yet, but everything is working towards a conclusion on that, and it'll go into the hands of the 2 councils next.
Thank you so much. We also have Chris Haley, comment from Chris. Chris, would you like to talk?
Hello, everybody. And it was a wonderful presentation. I'm very glad to see all the progress that's been made. And I was just saying that Shari Valario, through many different organizations, and certainly many of you know of her, through I Remember Annapolis and Annapolis, I Remember, Remember Inc. She's documented stories and put them in book form even, and we have some of them at the Maryland State Archives that should certainly be at least considered as far as what that excellent presentation that Brennan put together for diversity and any kind of video presentation on our rich history. So I would just put that out there, and I can contact Shari or just put it out there for anyone who wants to follow up with her as well.
Chris, it would be great if you and I could follow up on this, because we're hoping also that you will help us as we put this together. So if you can just shoot me an email, and I will get back to you today or tomorrow, but thanks very much on that.
Excellent, thank you.
Other comments?
Eileen, it's Ellie.
Ellie.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever get the opportunity to say this, but I do want to thank my predecessor, Alderman Joe Budge, and all the other people, my colleagues on the council that worked on the infamous City Dock action plan years ago. I just want to say that all that work was not for naught. It was the groundwork for this plan, and there were a lot of lessons learned and obstacles in that. that helped us move forward on this being a successful implementation. So I just want to do a shout out to all of those people that worked really hard on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellie. And let me ask either David or Mayor Buckley, do you have any closing comments?
I have to go on to the next meeting, but I think we should all give Eileen Fogarty a big round of applause, because to get, I hear she's up for the Nobel Peace Prize this year. To get 100 people to agree on anything in the city of Annapolis has gotten worldwide attention. So you deserve a big round of applause, Eileen.
Thank you. I'll take my mask off for that. Thank you, thank you.
Here, 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 here.
Terrific. And you all will be hearing from us in January when we really start getting things going. Thank you all. Safe holiday, wonderful holiday. Gavin.